What is this here? What is this here? What? Okay, so this is real. This is a real thing that is happening. Y'all know KFC, right? Yes, Kentucky Fried Chicken. We're talking about Kentucky Fried Chicken in a video games focused channel because KFC is launching their own game console. They announced it yesterday. I think they teased that at some time back, but they have just announced it. There's a trailer. Let's take a look.
The discovery of fire, or the invention of the wheel. It's a feeling inside all of us that compels us to go further, reach higher, and dream of ways to achieve the unachievable. When the odds are stacked against us and it seems like the entire world wants to tell us no, that's not possible. Surely that can't be done. And we look up to the stars and say, just watch me. Because we know that rules are made to be broken. We know that dreams are made to be followed. That the impossible is made to be possible. And that gaming consoles are made to evolve. Welcome to the next level in gaming innovation. The KFConsole.
Okay, power your hunger instead of power your dreams. I got several questions.
Just was wondering, is this an out-of-season April Fool's joke?
I'll give them this. They're clearly very self-aware. I'm pretty sure none of that trailer was serious at all. They're fully embracing the memery of this. They say right here, the console wars are over. Introducing the KFConsole. Okay, let's scroll down here. There's some screenshots of the console. It looks like a bucket. Appropriate for the KFConsole. Obviously, science has shown that the shape that exerts the most dominance is that of the bucket. I mean, Einstein said it himself in his 7th law of shapes. We all know, we learned this in elementary. This is where you can open up the device to insert chicken. This is not a joke. You can, as the trailer said, actually put chicken in there and heat it up. That's the power button. The bottom's got this red LED. And there it is. There it is. And we get a peek at that portion there. And you can see this kind of grill-like design with a fan on top here. 2 fans. Okay, so there's that. There's the official website, which has additional information. So this reads, introducing the KFConsole, power your hunger. The KFConsole has arrived, forged from the fires of the KFC ovens and built by Cooler Master from the ground up. There has never been a tastier way to experience the latest titles in stunning 4K 240 frames per second. This feels a whole lot like how PS5 and Series X are advertised as having 8K capabilities, which I guess is technically true in the sense that the consoles can technically output 8K, but we all know there's no game that will ever utilize that resolution unless it is some 8-bit indie title that can scale up to 8K and still run. But most AAA games, no, all AAA games will never reach 8K with these consoles. And this feels like that kind of marketing where it can technically output 4K 240 FPS. I feel like games will never ultimately achieve that because it's hard for even high-end PCs to run games at 4K and 240 FPS. So this is mainly marketing fluff. Here is a look at the chicken on top of, inside the compartment, I suppose. World first built-in chicken chamber. And the description here reads, never risk letting your chicken go cold again thanks to the patented chicken chamber. Utilizing the system's natural heat and airflow systems, you can now focus on your gameplay and enjoy hot, crispy chicken between rounds. So there's no dedicated heater, which is for the best, given the thermals for this, what is essentially a PC would be a disaster if there was an actual heating element that actually heats up the chicken. Instead, it uses the natural heat produced by the GPU, CPU, the components of the machine itself, and channeling that heat. I question the idea of a console running so warm that it can literally keep your chicken warm, unless the chamber itself has some kind of like compartment build that allows heat retention while the heat within the console actually flows out from the top or something. But even with all that resolved, I'm questioning how easily this console will get damaged by the chicken, because it depends on the height of the compartment, but some of the chicken can be regularly shaped, so as you like open the compartment, maybe some crumbs will fall into the console itself, some grease maybe as the chicken's heating up and the oil starts to maybe drip a little bit. You have to wash this thing as well. You know, people are going to be dipping it in water, and maybe they're not going to dry it enough and they put it back in. Water might seep into the console itself. There are all kinds of scenarios where this could go so wrong. This is the most expensive joke ever made, is what it feels like. Or at least on a mass market level, this feels like the most expensive joke ever made. I don't surmise they have many deals with game makers for exclusive games or first party. You know, they don't have any game development studios under their umbrella. I have a feeling they're just gonna shove Windows in there and people are just gonna be able to run Steam games and heat up their chicken. While at it, I'm thinking of the logistics of that, of like playing a game and suddenly being like, you know, I'm hungry. I'm gonna get some chicken. I'm gonna put my controller down, stand up from my couch, walk up to my console, undo the compartment, open it up, grab a piece of chicken and eat it right there and then in a warmer temperature. And here's another thought that comes to mind. If the system uses the natural heat generated by the console's components, that would mean that you would have to be running a heavy-duty game that pushes the graphics and the processing of things to ensure that the components get hot enough to heat up the chicken. Whereas if you were to put the console on standby, or if you were to play maybe a game that isn't super graphically intensive, the chicken would go cold, right? Unless there is a way to like switch on the components and like, I don't know, overclock them or something without playing a game so that you can heat your chicken up even if you're not in the middle of a really kind of graphically intensive game. Just like thinking of the logistics of all this, there's not a scenario where I see myself having any practical use for this. This is not a product that's going to fill a void in my lifestyle or anything of the sort. This just would be really funny to own. That's what it comes down to. One would purchase this for the funnies. I'm also imagining like this device looks like it could potentially collect a decent amount of dust, and you put the chicken in the chamber and maybe all that dust within the console gets blown upwards and maybe gets onto the food itself. It doesn't seem particularly sanitary. I don't know, man. I am baffled and fascinated, and I so badly want one for review. I don't imagine, like, jokes aside, I don't imagine this console is going to sell particularly well. I don't imagine it's going to do anything special that stands out from other consoles. Scrolling down further, we've got a blueprint, a schematic of the console's design. Now, I'm no expert in hardware design, so I don't know how efficient this cooling setup and architecture will actually be, but apparently this console, which is really just a PC, it's got, you know, an a Core i9 9th gen with an Asus GPU. So it reads right here, only the best, housed in a custom Cooler Master NC100 chassis. We needed something small but mighty, and that's just what we got. At the heart of this beast of a machine is the Intel NUC or NUC 9 Extreme Compute Element, keeping space down and driving performance that mere mortals could only dream of. And then right here we have a description of the GPU. Never miss a shot. Discover a level of gameplay you didn't know possible with Asus-powered graphics that runs buttery smooth, keeping tearing and frame drop a thing of the past. People will certainly be putting that bold claim to the test. With a first-of-its-kind hot-swappable GPU slot, the KFC console will stay the most powerful console for generations to come. Now, I actually did look up what the Intel NUC 9 is, and turns out it's basically a mini PC that does have a good amount of power where you can run games at like 1080p and even 1440p at above 60 FPS for a lot of modern games, with some struggle here at 4K. So this right here is a review from PC Mag, and scrolling down you can actually get a look at the internals, which are actually identical to what's described in the KFC website. So there's that Asus GeForce RTX. This is, I believe, a 2070, so I suspect it's going to be similar specs for the KFC version, unless they do plan to tweak some things and personalize this setup for their, again, console. But yeah, so there's the Asus GPU, and a lot of the components are also housed in this compartment right here. And so this is the architecture that the KFC console is going to house in here, essentially. And you can see that there are familiar elements to it. Obviously, the encasing is going to be different with the bucket shape. As far as the kinds of frame rates you can get, well, at its best, with everything maxed out specs-wise, you can get above 60 frames per second in most AAA games at 1440p. So Shadow of the Tomb Raider managed 70 frames per second with DLSS enabled. Forza Horizon 4 averaged 93 frames per second. Battlefront 2 ranged between 60 and 80 frames per second. Red Dead Redemption 2 39 frames per second at 1440p. And The Verge notes right here that if you go down to 1080p resolution, then those frame rates will be even higher and modern games are more playable. So, you know, it's a capable little device, but the price point is where a lot of people have an issue with this. This setup here with these specs, which are close to what KFC might ship with, you know, Core i9 with that Asus GPU, this spec'd out version of the NUC 9 cost almost $3,000. Now, going to Amazon, you can see that you've got an i9 variant of the NUC 9 here that is sitting at $1,500. So maybe the price went down, or maybe there are some elements of the specs here that are lower than what The Verge got here in their review unit. But either way, the price point is not going to be sub $1,000. It's going to be nowhere close to the much more mass appealing $500 on Series X and PS5, and lower if you go for the digital version of PS5 and the Series S. It is touted right here that the KFConsole is VR ready, has ray tracing, outputs up to 240 frames per second, and has 4K gaming. All of that is technically capable, but most games won't be able to properly utilize all of these features. Few games will ever reach 240 frames per second unless you really lower the graphic settings, and 4K is less tenable. This is more of a 1440p to 1080p gaming device. So all this marketing fluff about how this is the greatest games console ever, power beyond your imagination, all of these different things, it's all more for the memes, it would seem. It's not something you should really take seriously. What this console is at its core is a mini PC with similar, if not the same architecture as the NUC 9 that is already out, just with a different chassis, a bucket-shaped chassis that allows for the storage of fried chicken and the warming of fried chicken. This is the timeline we live in. All right, let me know, I guess, in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on the KFConsole. Does this appeal to you? Is this something that you need in your life, like I do? Drop a comment. And to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.